want us to unite in this effort. I want us to realize that we all belong to the same family, and we just cannot succeed if we are divided. We must not allow ourselves to be divided.
On August 11, 1979, presidential election held across the then 19 states of Nigeria, with Shagari and Alex Ekwueme winning the majority votes of 5.7 million to Awolowo and Umeadi's 4.9 million votes. The controversy that followed, however, almost derailed the transition program. The military had by then been in power since 1966, with Aguiyi Ironsi followed by Gowon, then Muritala Muhammad, who started the transition to civilian rule, and Obasanjo was to complete it in 1979. The constitution, however, had two major hurdles for a clear winner to emerge. One, the winner had to win more votes than all the other contestants, and two, the winner had to win at least 25% of the votes cast in at least two-thirds of the states in the country. If no clear winner emerged, there should be a rerun by popular vote or electoral college. Now, the question that nobody had bothered to ask or answered before that date was, what is two-thirds of 19 states? And it's that question we want to answer on this edition of Motherland. Do well to like and subscribe in order to help us produce more content and grow. Going by the polls, the mathematical accurate answer is 12.67 or 12 two-thirds in fraction, but Fideco had made an error. In the formation of parties, where the hurdle was also party office in two-thirds of the 19 states, Fideco insisted on party offices in 13 out of the 19 states. Shagari had won 25% of the votes cast in 12 states, but not enough votes in Kano, which was the 13th state. With Fideco hesitant to declare a winner, Chief Richard Akinjide, the legal advisor of Shagari's party, MPN, and its defeated gubernatorial candidate in Oyo State, went on radio in Kaduna and did the following analysis of the result, which then became the Fideco template. Two-thirds of 19 states is 12 states and 2/3 of the 13 states. Shagari had won 25% in 12 states, and total votes in Kano, the 13th, was 1.2 million, of which two-thirds was 813,000, of which Shagari had 243,000, which was greater than 25%. On August 16, Fideco used the same argument to declare Shehu Shagari winner of the 1979 election and returned as president. 4 days later, the Echo Holiday Inn in Lagos, Zik reads a statement on behalf of himself, Awolowo, Ibrahim Waziri, and their parties rejecting the results. Curiously, Aminu Kano's name was listed as one of the presidential candidates rejecting the result, and the figures his party, PRP, had got was also used in the calculations Zik presented. But Kano's name was cancelled with a biro on the press statement photocopies circulated. Awo went to court on the same day with a petition asking the Elections Tribunal to declare that Shagari had not been duly elected and that a rerun should be conducted. But a rerun hadn't been exactly agreed on in the constitution. It could be that or an electoral college. The constitution, which has been produced after deliberations, was specifically silent on what would happen if a winner didn't emerge, and it was to play a game of spin-offs. If Awo was in contention, rerun. If it was Zik, electoral college. Awo's contention was that the decree had said two-thirds of all states in the federation, not of the votes in the federation, and that a state could not be divided mathematically even by local government or votes, and had to remain a whole number, and so it would be 13 states, not 12 to 3rd. Baba submitted the written testimony of a professor of mathematical engineering, Engineer Ayodele Awojobi, to support his argument, and also listed him as one of the witnesses to be presented in the course of the hearing of the petition. But Shagari also had his own argument. Shagari said the decree has said to 3rd, and so no one should round it up on behalf of the law. 12 to 3rd was simply 12 as a whole number plus to 3rd as a fraction, nothing more or less. And that the whole thing was a question of voting figures which could be divided, not states. Shagari further contended that even beyond the votes, 2/3 of a state could be known by dividing local government areas or population, but this was an electoral context, and so vote it was. In any case, he chipped in that the time for a rerun would have lapsed by the time the tribunal sat. The tribunal began sitting on the 4th of September, and appearing for Awu were lawyers like G.O.K. Ajayi, Abraham Adesonya, Lao Bashorun, etc., while Richard Akinjide, Ahmed Kusamoto, Tonye Koka, Olu Awotesu, and others appeared for Shehu Shagari. Awu lost and appealed to Supreme Court. Before the case was concluded at the tribunal, however, the tenure in office of the CJN, Sadanli Alexander, came to an end, and he was replaced by Justice Atanda Fatayi Williams. Sir Alexander had come to Nigeria from London in 1957 on the request of Awu as Premier. Awu eventually lost at the Supreme Court. The panel that sat on the appeal at the Supreme Court had 7 judges, with 6 finding against Awu: Andrew Obaseki, Mohammed Bello, Muhammadu Uwais, Ayo Erikefe, Chukwuemwike Ediegbe, and I can't remember the last one. Maybe lawyers will help me with it. Kayode Osho was the only dissenting judge, but the judgment came with a caveat that gave Awu a moral victory of sorts. It said the judgment could not be cited as president thereafter. Chief Justice of the nation, Fatayi Williams, was the 6th judge who fought for Shagari and against Awu lawyers go away. That should have ended the matter, but Awu had a very strong hold of the press, and all sorts of conspiracy and demonization followed for years. Singled out mainly were Richard Akinjide, Olusegun Obasanjo. I've presented the facts. Here is my subjective analysis. The law is the law, but there is a spirit of intent behind any law, and that must always be kept in view. The intent of that provision of the decree was to use a mathematical equation to produce a president with voters from all parts of Nigeria, a federalist president, so to speak. The media of that age loved to claim that all the parties were regional parties, but a closer look proves that MPN was the only one of the 5 that was not a regional party but fully national and had the crucial national spread. And the spread of voting figures proved this. And it's even easier to understand. Ahmedu Bello and Tafawa Balewa had been killed in 1966, and their party had by then, 1979, evolved into a national party, winning gubernatorial elections in Kwara, Benue, Cross River, Rivers, etc., and competing strongly in Imo and Anambra. Awu's vote had come mainly from the southwest, and he didn't even come close to the national spread that Shagari had. In studying the figures, in fact, I discovered something that I have never found in any analysis of that period, which must have been missed by the Awu media. The decree was that in default of a candidate duly elected, there shall be a second election at which the candidates shall be the candidate who secured the highest and the one among the other candidates who has a majority of votes in the highest number of states. Awo had won the second highest number of votes, but had not acquired the required spread. Ibrahim Waziri had it. Awo, with the UPN platform, won 25% of votes in only 7 states: Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, Oyo, Kwara, and Rivers State. Waziri Ibrahim of the GMPP had it in 12 states. Ibrahim Waziri won 25% of the votes cast in Borno, Bauchi, Anambra, Benue, Cross River, Gongola, Imo, Kaduna, Kano, Niger, Plateau, and Sokoto states, 12 in total. So Awo had more numbers, but Waziri had more spread. Another round of legal gymnastics was bound to happen. To show how funny it was, Awo in the then 2 eastern states had got 73% in Anambra compared to Waziri 1.67%, 64 in Imo State compared to Waziri 3%. Shagari did 13% in Anambra and 8% in Imo. It's very clear to me personally who was more nationally accepted, but agenda. Anyway, Awo wasn't happy with everybody, and then the beautiful bride Azikiwe, on the same day he had held that press conference on behalf of the others, had begun holding talks with Shagari and MPN to form a political alliance of his party MPP and the soon-to-be the ruling party. At the same Echo Holiday Inn, on the same day of the press conference, Zik allies Arubike Okafo and Adeniro Ogunsoya were in discussion with Joseph Taka, Matthew Mbu, and Olushola Saraki to form an alliance, which they eventually did, and NPP produced ministers under MPN. Governors on the platform of Awo's MPN refused to hand Shagari's picture in their office for a long time, almost 2 years, and in some cases, never. But the battle soon moved to the Senate when MPN presented Richard Akinjide as the ministerial nominee from Oyo State. There were 2 nominees from Oyo State actually. Back to Akinjide's saga at the Senate in the hands of UPN senators. Akinjide and 3 other nominees, 2 MPN and 2 MPP, were rejected by the Senate. UPN senators claiming that Akinjide had done one thing of the other while being a minister in the First Republic and so should be rejected. On November 28, Shagari presented him again to Senate. The big irony is that 2 senators from the north had joined UPN. Senators to claim that Akinjide had been ethnocentric with scholarship as Minister of Education in the First Republic. Oloye Saraki and the sage of the Senate, however, countered that point very logically. Saraki pointed out that Akinjide had never been a member of any party that had the West as its base. Instead, he had always joined national parties that seems to make him unpopular at home. How could anyone accuse such a nationalist of ethnocentrism? And records were produced. Saraki also claimed that UPN senators were only trying to punish Akinjide for being a member of UPN and instrumental to Awo's loss by way of the argument he had first proposed on Radio Kaduna justifying why Shagari should be declared president based on the 12 to 3rd. Senator Jonathan Odebiyi of UPN, however, countered, and his counter is, for me, the external justification of Akinjide from all accusation from shadowing opinion articles in Tribune and other Awolowo-friendly media. He absolutely exonerated Akinjide a bit inadvertently. Adebiyi declared that Akinjide was not the author of the 13-state versus 12 to 3rd saga, that Fideco had actually sought and got the interpretation from the Ministry of Justice, and that Akinjide was only the voice to sound out public opinion on it. Senator Joseph Taka then rose and delivered a coup de grace, saying that if Akinjide's brothers want to destroy him, that is their own business, but that he was now a national issue and Akinjide a national property. The Senate became rowdy. Senate President Wires banged the gavel, but nobody listened. The UPN senator staged a walkout. A roll call was taken and a quorum still formed. The matter was put to vote. Akinjide became a minister by 48 senators who vote out of the 90-something senators. Interestingly, one UPN senator stayed back that day to vote for Akinjide, Senator Ademola Adegoke from Oyo State, and he gave his reason that if Akinjide was to be demonized for politically opposing a fellow Yoruba, why should fellow Yorubas not support Akinjide to be minister? His closing sentence were, "If we look back at this country, we find that 19 years ago we had independence, but have achieved nothing. It is always confusion caused by tribalism or one allegation or the other." Of course, his political party UPN never forgave him. The political position taken by some of us is based on our understanding of the political history of this country and our interpretation of past events without prejudice to anybody. Awolowo's political thought in terms of policy were far ahead of his time. Nobody compares to him in his generation, not one. I admire him, but I see his flaws very clearly. And on this electoral saga, Akinjide was unfairly demonized and the narrative was mainstreamed. If I had come across that demonization only as a one-time thing with Akinjide, then I may say maybe indeed Akinjide was at fault. But it is uncannily consistent with Awo's politics against fellow Yorubas who did not join his party and dare to oppose him. The Awo Tesu, who appeared for Shagari earlier mentioned, was an Awo ally in the First Republic. Towards 1978, he didn't join Awo, and from that point on, demonization followed. The most painful one that I know and will one day talk about is Olaiya Fagbemigbe. Fagbemigbe was a brilliant entrepreneur who joined African Group in the First Republic and published Awo's most famous trilogy. He joined, then left UPN for MPN in the Second Republic and was burnt to death at the saga of 1983 in Ondo. His name was erased almost completely. Almost because if you buy an old edition of those Awo books, Fagbemigbe publisher is still there. But today, I'm talking about Chief Richard Akinjide, who was a proud member of the PDP until he sat dead a few years ago. What did UPN expect of the 12th to 3rd issue? Akinjide was the legal advisor of the MPN, but he should have abandoned the party he campaigned hard for and not produce any legal argument to justify the victory declared by Fideco. I laugh. Anyway, that's the story, and I hope future generation and ours learn from it. The aim is never to denigrate anyone, but to present the fact as I know them. The men of yesteryears are to be studied and learned from, and history is not just a compilation of stories, but a living guide to help us in our own time and shape our thoughts, dispositions, and actions. Thanks again for following up today's edition of Motherlands, and please do well to like and subscribe in order to help us produce more interesting content. See you in our next edition.